I'm going to record. There we go. Nice to see you all. So today I'm going to talk to you about something that hopefully I will be glad to talk to you about. I have it's something that is very, very important, and it's something that I have not talked about in quite a long time because I guess it opens up a lot of potential for misunderstanding, more so than most of the things that I talk about. Um, and so maybe it's easier to play it safe and just talk about the things that have less potential for misunderstanding. But this is nonetheless important enough that I will talk about it. So what I'd like to talk to you about is the importance of what I'm going to call deep relaxation. And so, like all things, these words are loaded, so you already have some idea of what that means, and then you're going to react to that, and that causes us problems. So then I have to say a bunch of words to hopefully try and undo some of that, and then organize that so that we can communicate. And then maybe there will be some understanding, and maybe then it will be useful to you. So the Take a step back, first of all, and just give the context. So the context for this meeting, as always, is to support you in self-knowledge. And ultimately, that is for real fulfillment. So whatever your strategies in life might be, whatever it is that you think you're doing, whatever thoughts you have, and whatever plans you have, ultimately, if you really take a look, you'll likely notice that what you're really aiming for is what you might call happiness, or you might call satisfaction, or you might call fulfillment, or you might call it peace, you might call it clarity, you might call it by many names. But that's really what you're looking for. And I would call that self-knowledge, to actually know who you are very, very deeply, to know who you are, to know that so thoroughly and so uh, completely that you can actually have the experiences that you're looking for, whether you call that happiness or fulfillment or peace or whatever else. That I'm proposing that comes from actual self-knowledge. And that knowledge is not just book knowledge, it's not just the information, because as I've said many times, I could give you the answer and you already know the answer. You know the answer intellectually, at least most of you probably know the answer intellectually. But that intellectual answer does not give you what you're really looking for, because the real knowledge is something that is actually, we'll say, embodied, or has a practical application level to it. So it's something that you really truly know, not just something that you've read or heard. Be like, if you know how to tie your shoes, then you actually have that knowledge because you've done it. So you really know for sure that you can tie your shoes. It's not just something that you watched a YouTube video on. Because if you just watch the YouTube video, then that's not really going to ensure that you can actually tie your shoes. So the knowledge of yourself is like that. Somebody can give you that, as interesting as that might be, somebody can actually give you that information about who you really are. And yet, that does you very little good. It might be useful in some degree, to some degree, as a pointer, but ultimately, for it to be real knowledge, you actually have to put that into practice so that you really truly know it. So that's what the aim here is for you to have real self-knowledge. And that real self-knowledge is the foundation that allows you to actually have what it is that you want, because you know really who you are. You know what your capacities are. You know your powers. What um, what you really want. So when you have that knowledge, and again, real knowledge, not just book knowledge, not just intellectual knowledge, but when you really have the true knowledge, then that gives you what you're really looking for. A lot of the time we think that we want the external things because we think that the external things will somehow in and of themselves give us what we really want. But of course, if you don't tell the truth about it, that's never actually true. The external things never give you what you really want. The external things may be part of a path of self knowledge or self learning. So I'm not discounting the potential value of having the goals, But the external attainments in and of themselves will never give you what you really want because you can't really, well, several reasons. I mean, well, the main thing being that their nature is transient. So all things are transient, all things come and go, all things are subject to change. And yet what you're looking for is something that is eternal. So that's, I think, kind of the fundamental reason why none of those things can ever give you what you really want is because what you really want is eternal. And those things are by their nature transient. So hopefully that's clear. Um, so that's the context. And then again, what I'd like to explore today is this topic that I'm calling deep relaxation. So why deep relaxation? I mean, maybe that to some of us, maybe that sounds nice. If it doesn't sound nice, then hopefully I will persuade you that it's at least important. But if you think it sounds nice, then like I said, you already are coming with preloaded. You already think you already know something about it, and that puts you at a disadvantage. So if you're willing, I encourage you just to set aside everything that you think you know about the words that are being used and instead be willing to actually take a fresh look and discover something new that could actually serve you. So you have an idea already, as we all do, because if you understand the words at least, you have an idea of what they mean. So deep and relaxation, and you think if you put them together, then that means something that you already understand. But let's just again set that aside for a moment. So what I'm proposing is that what I'm talking about here, that I'm calling deep relaxation, which we could call by many other names as well, is foundational for self-knowledge. So what I've found is that a lot of us tend to be uh, in a lot of need of deep relaxation because we tend to be pretty stressed out, pretty anxious, worried, stressed, fearful, caught up in trying to solve a lot of problems. So it leads to a lot of stress. And a lot of the time we get so caught up in that it becomes kind of white noise and we don't notice it, at least not to the extent that we could. And so we don't even have any contrast because it's just a sort of constant thing. For many of us, even we don't even actually completely let go of it, even in sleep. Some people do, and then they'll notice that contrast between deep restorative sleep and then their normal experience. But usually, the habit of identifying as all of the problems and ideas and so forth is so uh, unconscious and so rapid and complete that as soon as most people wake up, instantly they're back into the identities and they lose sight of anything that contrasts with that. So they don't even notice that there's an alternative. So for most of us, it's invisible. So we're usually just so caught up in all of the stress so that most people don't even know that there's something else. And so I've noticed that this is a problem for many people that they don't even know that deep relaxation even exists. They don't know that it's available to them. They don't know that that's really pointing to something very true about who they are, the foundation, the essence of who they are. And so they're just caught up in the stresses and then trying to find solutions to their so-called problems from that position of the stress. So it gives a very shaky foundation to say the least. So I'm reminded of uh, this. I don't know if it's a parable. I guess it's a parable of the man who builds his house on the foundation of sand and the man who builds his house on the foundation of rock that Jesus uses in the New Testament. So this idea that um, if you're building your foundation on metaphorically sand, then you have no stable foundation. So then how do you expect that you're actually going to get good results? So that's where many people are trying to build their house on. is on this unstable, shaky foundation of all of the distress and all of the identities. So there's not anything stable there. And what deep relaxation offers is at least a glimpse of a more stable foundation. So I think that it's really foundational. I think it's important to actually have a glimpse and preferably regular glimpses of this deep relaxation. So I'd like to offer, I guess, some experience of that today. So if you, and then we can talk about that and explore that a little bit more. But as they say, an image is worth a picture is worth 1,000 words, 10,000 words, or something like that. And I would say an experience, direct experience, is worth infinitely more than that. So we could talk and talk and talk and talk, and it wouldn't do a lot of good. But if you actually have the experience that we can refer to, then it will do a lot more good. So that's where I'd like to start, is by actually having an experience. Um, so if you happen to be like driving or operating heavy machinery or something like that, then I recommend uh, that you don't engage in this exploration right now. If you are driving and you can find a safe place to pull over and stop the car, I would recommend that you do that instead, or otherwise watch this at another time when the recording is available. For those who are in a place where you have the ability to close your eyes, you may find it useful to close the eyes. It's not required, but one benefit of closing the eyes is that it reduces the amount of visual stimulation. So it just will reduce the amount of visual processing. So free some things up for you to be able to put your attention on other aspects of your experience. And just notice whatever thoughts or expectations or ideas you might have right now. So if you think that you already know what this is about or where it's going, if you think you've already had some experiences that maybe what I'm referring to is deep relaxation, then perhaps you would be willing to just set those aside for the time being so that you could actually have some kind of fresh experience, something that's not just a repetition of the past. You could be open to the possibility that who you are really is that newness, that freshness, so that it's not something that you can find by digging around in the past. You'd actually have to look here now in order to discover that. And you could maybe just notice whatever you notice. So you probably could become aware that there is various sensory processing happening. You might be aware of, for example, sound. So you might be hearing, presumably, the sound of my voice. Probably there are other sounds that are happening, perhaps in the space where you are, perhaps interiorly, there might be sounds like you might become aware of the sound of your own heart beating, for example. So there's sound. Now, even with your eyes closed, there's still some visual processing going on. Even if you say to yourself, well, all I'm aware of is the sense of blackness or darkness, something like that. Still, there's that much. And some people will notice other things. So you could just be aware of whatever visual processing is happening. You could also become aware of whatever kind of tactile sensations there are, like you might notice the sense of pressure on your skin, on your body, wherever you might happen to be making contact with the floor or a chair. If your hands happen to be resting in your lap, you could notice the sense of the pressure on the skin of the hand on the lap and the lap against the hand. Maybe you notice the experience or the sensation of what you would consider to be the clothing that you're wearing against your skin. Maybe you notice the sense of warmth or coolness on the skin coming into contact with the air. You could have a sense of your sense of yourself in space. So if you are sitting upright, then you might notice how you are aware that you're sitting upright. This is what we call proprioception, just the internal sense of how you are in space. You could become aware also of any kind of internal sensations. And without even having to label them or figure out what they mean, you could just be aware of them. And perhaps there's a particular sensation that you could give your attention to for a moment. Any sensation at all. And you might notice that even if you have any thoughts or opinions or labels or images that come to mind regarding that sensation, that it's possible to just tune into the sensation directly without consulting any of those other mediating agents, so that you could just be aware of the actual direct experience, just the raw sensation. And maybe you could even open to that just with curiosity. So not trying to get anything from it or figure it out or get rid of it or anything, but just out of curiosity, just to find out what that is like, to actually open with curiosity, just discover what happens when you do that. And you might also notice any number of other things. So if you happened to notice thoughts, that you could just be aware of those thoughts and curious about the nature of the thoughts. So sometimes when thoughts happen, we have a particular habitual relationship to them. We engage with them in a particular way. What happens if you just are curious about them? So you might, for example, be curious about how you're aware of thoughts. A lot of the time, we have the habit of just going directly to engaging with the content of the thoughts. But what happens if you're just curious about what's the actual nature of the thought itself? How do you know about the thought? For example, a lot of the times we'll have an auditory representation of the thought. Like sometimes we're hearing the thought as though there's a voice inside our own heads or something like that. So you can just be curious if that's true. Or sometimes thoughts happen as images, so you can just notice if you see something. You could just be curious if you didn't have any sensory awareness of the thought, would there be a thought? You know, for example, if you could not inwardly hear or see or feel anything, how would you know that you had a thought? Is it possible to have a thought without that kind of internal representation? And again, this is just an invitation to explore directly, so as not to get theoretical or hypothetical, but to actually just notice directly within yourself, what would that be like? And it's possible that through all this exploration, you might notice that perhaps you're already finding that you're more deeply relaxed. Perhaps you discover that uh, you have the capacity to more deeply relax. Or perhaps you're discovering that you have more curiosity about what it actually means to deeply relax. Maybe you just have more useful information that helps you to actually start to explore that possibility for yourself without having the baggage of the old ideas. So, whatever your experience is absolutely perfect. So, there's no one experience that is the right experience to have other than just the experience that you're having. And the main thing is just to realize that you have the ability to uh, interact with that experience in new ways. So rather than thinking that the experience, that there's a thing called an experience, and that the experience is either good or bad, or desirable or undesirable, that actually anything that is happening is an opportunity for you to explore the relationship that you have with that experience, or put more clearly, perhaps, to explore the relationship with how you do things internally, how you actually create your experience. So you can actually start to witness directly how it is that you create your experience. And in witnessing that, this starts to give you more options, whether you're conscious of those presently or not. You'll start to have more and more conscious awareness of those options the more that you explore this, because you'll just naturally start to discover that there's so much more going on than you thought, and that you have so much more room for exploration and discovery and play and change and transformation than what you would have thought previously. So when you would like, at any time, you're free, of course, as you've always been, to do whatever you would like. So if you would like to continue to explore this deep relaxation as I've been guiding it, then you're welcome to do so. And if you would like to do something differently, then you're welcome to do so. If you have your eyes closed and you would like to continue to keep your eyes closed, you're certainly welcome to do so. And if you have your eyes closed and you would like to explore opening them at any time, you're welcome to do so. So this deep relaxation, as I'm calling it, is really about self-awareness. It's about knowing that there's a spaciousness, that there's an opportunity for pausing, for exploring what's actually happening rather than reacting. And so often we may just be caught up in reacting without even knowing that that's what we're doing. We might think that we're choosing, but actually what we're doing is just reacting. And so in that, in that stress and reaction, there's a kind of unconsciousness. And so there's no possibility in that space of actually choosing anything or doing anything differently. So all that will happen then will be just more of the same. We might think that we're doing something differently, but actually nothing will change unless and until we access this deep relaxation. So this deep relaxation allows the possibility of actually doing something differently because now there's actually awareness of what's happening. Because what's happening is actually an internal process. As I said, it's a relationship with how you create your experience internally, how you represent your experience. So if you're not aware of that, then everything's going to be just more of the same because you'll be, when you're in a distressed state, then you will not have the sense that there's any opportunity for actually exploring options. There's going to be a sense of urgency. And so the only things that will come to you will be the same kinds of things that have come to you in the past, which you've already tried and which have not yet given you the kinds of results that you want. So this deep relaxation offers you the possibility of doing something differently. And so what will happen, whether you've discovered it already or not, is that fresh insights and ideas will come to you. And sometimes those will be ideas about something that you can do differently externally, and that's fine if and when that happens. A lot of it, though, will be more just internal. So just a realization about how you could uh, perceive something differently or respond differently within yourself, or how you could think differently. New options will appear to you, and so I'm not dismissing the external nor the internal. I'm just pointing out that really just to not dismiss the internal stuff because a lot of the time our focus is so external. We can dismiss the internal stuff as trivial, but I'm suggesting don't dismiss it. It's not trivial. It's important because you actually create your experience from the inside out. So having the awareness of those new options internally can be really powerful. The way in which you think about something or imagine something or the way that you respond internally can make an enormous difference in all aspects of your experience, including externally. So having the awareness of what things you can do differently or new options that are available to you can be very powerful and transformative. In fact, I would say it's the only thing that's actually transformative. So, I think I said, I think that this topic of deep relaxation can be probably much more easily misunderstood than many of the other topics that I talk about. So, I want to kind of take a little bit of time with that to hopefully clear up some of the common misconceptions. Uh, so, some of the other things that I commonly talk about, which will not be a surprise to anybody here, I talk about the importance of knowing what you want, for example. And I talk about the importance of putting your sustained attention on what it is that you want. I talk about the importance of releasing those things which are interfering with the expression of what it is that you want. So whether those are limiting beliefs or uh, energetic habits, like habits of how you uh, internally relate to others and things like that. So those are all important. And there are also, uh, there's lots of room for misunderstanding there, but I think they're relatively more straightforward. when it comes to this deep relaxation, I think one of the main misunderstandings will be that some people will then potentially think that what I'm suggesting, or that what is true, is that deep relaxation is the only thing that one should apply in order to try and produce changes in their life, or that um, deep relaxation uh, uh, negates the need for any other kinds of changes because it's so fundamental. And so I think I'd like to address that, because what I'm talking about here and describing as deep relaxation is something that sometimes some people will uh, become very enthusiastic about, and they will focus on that at the expense of everything else. So they'll think, well, if I can just deeply relax enough, then I don't need anything else. This gives me everything that I'm looking for. If I can, when I really do this, then I know that everything is fine. I'm not experiencing any stress. I can even recognize that I am already complete, that I don't need anything, that everything that I've been looking for is available within. I can, not only is it available within, but it's immediately accessible, intimately accessible. So it's just, like right here, right now. So why would I do anything else? Because anything else would seem to be almost regressive. Like, why would I step out of this and then in order to do something else, trying to achieve something when I'm already complete and happy and fulfilled here and now? So if that works out for you, then that's great. I mean, if that actually gives you the complete results in your life in all ways and everything that you're looking for, then fantastic. I mean, why not take the direct shortcut? So if you find that that actually gives you the complete results that you're looking for, then fantastic, and then look no further. However, for most of us, what we will find is that this leads to what some people would refer to as spiritual bypassing. And um, so if you're if you're if this becomes a refuge that you rely upon in order to avoid taking any making any external changes, even though maybe external changes are being called for, then it becomes problematic for you. So, and the real measure is for you. It's not for anybody else. So, if other people are having problems, but you're genuinely not having problems, uh, then I guess you don't have any problems. But for most of us, what we'll find is if we're really honest with ourselves, then we'll find that we're still having problems, but we're just trying to avoid them, because what this deep relaxation offers is, like I said, a refuge. But it's uh, not sufficient for most of us in most cases. So this is where I make the distinction between what I call these two different paths. So the path of the renunciate versus the path of accomplishment. So both are valid paths. You just have to acknowledge which is your path. So if you have bills to pay, if you've got children to feed, if you've got aging parents that you're taking care of, if you have a career that you're wanting to maintain, whatever the case may be, if you're still involved in this world and you're making that choice, then uh, your path is not the path of the renunciate, and therefore deep relaxation is not the total path for you. It's a very important component, but it's not sufficient in and of itself, at least not for most people on that path. I can't rule out the possibility that in some cases it might not be, but by and large it will not be, because for the most part, people who are on the path of accomplishment have other things in this world that they're still wanting to work out. There are still lessons there to learn, still things that the person wants to attain. And so it's important to be honest about that because if you're just trying to avoid that, then you will not actually be fulfilled by that. So temporarily, you might say, "Oh, it's such a relief. I feel such relief. I don't want to go back into the stress." But that sets up a false dichotomy, and that ends up being very painful. I know from experience because if if the setup is, well, out there is painful, in here is peace and freedom. Therefore, I will avoid out there and just remain here in the peace and freedom. Then, uh, if that's not something that you can actually sustain, then it's dishonest. And most of us will find that we keep getting pulled into the external stuff. And you'll know that that's the case when you're starting to feel the stress again. You're like, "Ah, I got bills to pay and I don't know how I'm going to pay them." Or, oh, I've got these dysfunctional relationships around me that I'm still not sure how to navigate. Or I'm still having these health challenges that are really bothering me. If that's happening, then that's an indication, a pretty clear indication that you need to balance the deep relaxation with some other pieces of the puzzle. Still, the deep relaxation is fundamental because without that, then you are trying to build your house on sand. So everything's shifting, but you're trying to find some kind of stability in that, and that's not going to work. So I very highly recommend having a regular uh, ritual of engaging with deep relaxation on a daily basis. One very simple yet very powerful practice that I recommend is breath awareness, which will offer you this if you find that. And I actually think breath awareness has other benefits beyond the the directed practice that I gave today. But if you find the practice of breath awareness to be challenging and you preferred the kind of practice that I guided today, great, work with that instead. Or in addition, you could do that and then do like 1 minute of breath awareness or something that's comfortable for you. You want to engage with deep relaxation on a regular basis because it offers you that very important perspective to know that you have options and to know that the basis of many of the stresses is directly refuted by the deep relaxation. So just want to take a moment just to explore that, just so that's clear. So just notice some distress that is has been on your mind recently, and notice how having accessed deep relaxation automatically offers you some new perspective on that. So it's possible that maybe for some people might notice a resistance to even consciously engage with it because you might say, "Oh, well, why do I want to do that? Because I feel so at ease and relaxed and peaceful. Why would I want to engage with that?" And um, I would encourage you to know and accept that the distresses, those patterns of distress, actually have no power over you. They're just habits that you formed in the past that you continued because you didn't have knowledge of how you were doing it or how you have other options. And what's happening now is that through this deep relaxation, you have new perspective, so new options are available to you. So you start to on some level, discover, or at least have the ability to more easily recognize that the actual process that you've habitually engaged in that led to the distress. So in the past, when the distress was unconscious, you didn't know how you were doing it. And that was what perpetuated the distress because there has to be a sense of powerlessness in that process. But now you have more awareness of your internal process and how you have actually produced the distress for yourself. So this allows you to actually make changes just through that increased awareness. So there's no need to be concerned or cautious about just consciously engaging a little bit with what you perceived as distressing. So because the key here is that you're actually aware now of the inner process. And so you can just slow that down and notice what you can become aware of in regard to that process for yourself. So perhaps you notice that the deep relaxation offers you that, as I said, it offers you that ability to slow things down so there's no longer the urgency. So you can start to recognize that very deeply and profoundly, you are okay. So it puts things in the right perspective. You can know that fundamentally, I am okay. Fundamentally, I am uh, greater than any of the problems that I seem to face. Because why? Because the problems are actually processes that I'm doing internally. So I am that greater existence or that greater being in which the processes are occurring. I am that in which all the processes are occurring. So I don't have to be concerned or distressed about the processes. I actually have the capacity and the space to slow that down, become aware, and therefore I can make changes. And maybe those changes will be instantaneous and maybe they will seem to take some time. And either way is okay, at least from the perspective of deep relaxation. That should be somewhat clear that at least in this moment, it's okay. So that's one of the things that I wanted to clear up. One of the misunderstandings again is that um, sometimes people will have the misunderstanding that deep relaxation is the totality of the whole thing. That's the whole answer to everything, and therefore everything else should be avoided. But actually, I'm suggesting that deep relaxation offers a foundation that's very empowering that allows you to then produce the changes in your experience at all levels. So you can actually utilize the power or empowerment of deep relaxation as an ally to enhance your ability to make the changes and transform your experience. So it's they go together. Um, there was something else that I was going to say, but I don't remember what it is at the moment. So if it comes to me, I will say it, and if not, then I will not. Oh, yeah. So I think another misunderstanding that can come up is, and it's somewhat related, but not exactly. It's similar to the first, but the sense that, well, then nothing really matters. So So then why bother with any of the rest of it? I mean, when I know that I'm fine, then I don't really need any of the other stuff. So why bother? I'm not gonna, then I won't pursue any of my goals. And on the one hand, there's some value in that because it will help you to release those things which are not actually yours. So I often talk about the importance of having the ability to discern what are your true desires and those which are borrowed desires. So having deep relaxation allows you greater capacity for that because when you deeply relax, then it's pretty, I mean, when you're very deeply relaxed, then you completely let go of everything, at least for one moment. And so in that space, you can recognize that actually fundamentally you don't need anything. And so certainly those desires which are borrowed, in that light, you will find that you can let go of. You can at least identify them so that you can then let go of them. However, uh, there will be some things uh, that will continue to surface, certain desires that even though from you can authentically, from a perspective of deep relaxation, recognize that you don't actually have any attachment to those, that you don't really need them or really care. Um, Nonetheless, if they, you can start to also discern some of those things will come up in a way that you can recognize that mm, that it's actually good and appropriate for you to give some attention and energy to those things and the fulfillment of those things, even if you don't have any uh, real attachment to it. That there's still, and this is kind of tricky to describe. I don't have really clear parameters to be able to distinguish these, but you'll just notice that there are some things which are there for you to show up to in your life. So even though you might, on some level, you might be able to recognize, I don't really have an attachment to these things. I don't really need anything here. But there'll still be some kind of intuitive clarity that it's right and good for you to continue to attend to these things, certain kinds of, maybe your job or some kind of creative project or certain relationships in your life. So um, again, one of the misunderstandings could be that from this perspective of deep relaxation, to realize, well, I don't have any attachment to any of it. I don't, none of it matters. I don't care at all. And uh, if that was really true through and through, then you would you would probably find yourself in a cave or something. But if that doesn't happen, and that's not thoroughly joyful, then actually there's a deeper truth, which is that there's still something for you here to attend to. And so it's good and appropriate for you to attend to those things. And so I guess one last thing that I'll say about that is I would strongly recommend against uh, imbalanced levels of deep relaxation. Because again, if you recognize the uh, pleasure available in deep relaxation, and then you seek refuge there and excessively, then you can experience excessive detachment. But if there's still things that are for you, appropriate for you to attend to in this life, then it's not actually good for you to be excessively detached from them. So better is to have the right balance where you can just joyfully show up for the things in your life. Because honestly, what's the problem with that? When you know that you're free and you know that you're not suffering and you know that you are empowered and you know all these things which are available to you through this deep relaxation, then what's the problem with actually showing up in your life and taking actions and having goals and doing those things? There actually is no problem. So if you perceive that there is a problem, then there's still something to attend to there, just to notice, so that you can clear that up for yourself. Because there, there there's no conflict between taking action in this world and deep relaxation. They go together. They complement one another. In fact, the more deeply relaxed you are, the more capacity for action you have in this world. So the paradox, though, is that uh, you don't particularly care. So a lot of the time, that's where that's where it gets tricky for people, because if you think, oh, I'm going to use this as a strategy to achieve all of my goals, then you'll be you will find that it doesn't quite work that way. On the other hand, if you think, oh, I'm going to use this to escape from all of my problems, that won't work out for you. It's actually right in the middle, where you relieve yourself of all the problems. You begin to joyfully express without any attachment, without any need, without any sense that I need things to change in order to be fulfilled. Instead, you know that you already are fulfilled, and you naturally and joyfully express from that, but without any sense that you are going to get anything from that. And that's very different from how most of us are used to operating. But in the meantime, most people are not going to find themselves in those extremes. So I'm just giving those cautionary notes for those few people who tend towards those extremes. So if you do, then just remember those cautionary notes and rein it back in. So don't do these things to the extreme. I really very much believe in a more middle pathway, where you can be in this world and you can be taking action in this world, and you can also be knowing yourself and experiencing peace within yourself and joy within yourself without having any attachment to the outcomes. But in order for that to occur, you have to be willing to stay engaged in the world, and to also be willing to deeply relax, at least on a daily basis. So that's all I wanted to say, I think, unless I forgot something, which I probably did. So for those who are here live, we'll stay on for the group coaching. For those who will watch this on YouTube, I'll just say a few parting words for today. So if you would like to join these calls live, these meetings live, you're welcome to do so. The information for that is available when you sign up for my newsletter at my website, joylot.com. I'll provide the link in the description on YouTube. Also, when you sign up, you will get access to the ebook in which I describe 5 of the fundamental laws of creation, which will be empowering for you so that you can actually start to make choices that will be in alignment with what you want in your life. So I encourage people to check that out. And also, if you are interested in receiving my support to fulfill your goals in alignment with your values in the most harmonious way possible, you may be interested in the Manifesting Truth program, which is a paid program that I offer. And you can get more information about that at joylot.com/manifesting-truth. I'll provide the link in the description. So for those who are watching on YouTube, blessings to you. I'm going to end this recording now.